Welcome to Being in Motherhood. We're your hosts, Kendra Fitzgerald and Nicole Coons, sisters, moms, and the co-founders of Devoted Mamas.
This show is all about you and using your perfectly messy, absurd, and marvelous experiences in motherhood as opportunities to hone your greatest qualities.
Because your family deserves the best of you, not the most of you.
You'll gain the tools to be a bold advocate for yourself in pregnancy, claim your joy in birth, and find wholeness in postpartum.
Being in Motherhood starts right here. In today's episode, it's Nicole here sitting down with Kendra for our very first episode, so you can get to know a little bit about who's behind this podcast. We're jumping right in with confession time. But before we get to the confession, we do want to share a little bit about why we created Devoted Mamas, the company behind Being in Motherhood podcast. So it all came together in 2017 after the two of us had had varied experiences with having our own kids and how hard it was to actually find the right information about pregnancy and postpartum. We really discovered how frustrating it was and felt that women shouldn't have to spend years, actually decades, getting degrees and certifications in order to understand our own bodies and have control over how we grow our babies and how we heal. Yet, this is where we are. So we are here to share everything we've learned and discovered through the years. We're determined to help shift the paradigm of what it means for mothers to truly sit in the driver's seat when it comes to their health and well-being. And if you know us, you'll know that this passion runs deep. We love our work so much. It's really work that never feels like work because we love it and we live it every day. And we get to work with each other, sisters. So Kendra, let's start with you are my sister.
Yeah.
Now, you are the younger one of the two of us by a few years. You have two kids and they are, okay, wait, I'm not going to try to guess because I can never keep track.
I know.
How old are your kids now?
I can't keep track of my own kids' ages. They're 8 and almost 5. 2 boys.
2 boys, yes. And you've been a fitness professional your entire career. You're an athlete and a runner, and then you had your first baby. And your postpartum experience, let's just say it was full of surprises. So what happened?
Yeah, I totally thought I had this pregnancy thing nailed with pregnancy fitness because, I was so used to working out, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to work out my entire pregnancy. I mean, up to 9 months pregnant, the day before I gave birth, I was walking on the treadmill for an hour at an uphill incline, watching Downton Abbey, doing everything I possibly could to stay as fit as possible during my pregnancy because I was a fitness person anyway. So I was like, I have to do this. And so I really took it very seriously that I wanted to stay really fit during my pregnancy. And the surprises mostly came in postpartum. And boy, was I surprised. And, here comes my confession. A lot of people have assumed that because I'm a fitness professional, that my own recovery in postpartum would have been easy. But that just actually wasn't the case. I ended up going back into exercise too fast and started going back to running. I was a runner before pregnancy. I really wanted to get back into it quickly. And so I jumped back into it. And of course, like when you're postpartum, you're like, you just want to move. And so my movement was running. And I ended up running so much that I gave myself prolapse. And it can be scary. And I didn't know what was happening, but it caused me to not be able to run anymore. I had to actually stop running because every time I ran, I would feel like my insides were falling out. I would feel like my crotch was on fire and just so heavy. That was a really hard hitting point for me because I identified as a runner pre-pregnancy. And now in postpartum, I found that my identity as a runner was kind of nixed and it was pulled out from underneath me. And that felt really discombobulating and just, super frustrating. It actually took me 2 years to recover and feel like myself again. But during those 2 years, it was kind of a hard fought process because I ended up having to cancel races. I had to completely redo my relationship to fitness as a fitness professional. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so different. And, the whole journey, I felt like I was grasping straws. Workouts that I previously loved to do just felt really off. my hips hurt every morning when I woke up. I'd actually be demonstrating exercises for my own clients and they would feel really hard. Like I do 1 or 2 reps and be like, oh my gosh, I can't even do this. I feel really broken. And honestly, I didn't know how to fix any of it because I just assumed that you could do what you did before, that the exact same strategies that I used pre-pregnancy with all of my non-mom clients would work the same. And I was just completely unaware of all the changes that happen to a body when it's pregnant. Of course, your body changes during pregnancy, but I had no idea how much, really. And it's such a gradual change that you just don't realize it's happening.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
over a 10-month period, and your bones, your muscles, your ligaments, your tendons, they all shift when you're pregnant.
Right. We usually only kind of see the belly changing, but if you've ever been pregnant, you know exactly how much the rest of your body changes. I mean, you
Yeah.
can feel it inside, but physically, sometimes we even forget because it's so gradual that your hips get wider, your back takes on more of the pressure, your shoulders hurt, your ankles hurt, your muscles are stretched in completely different directions and they're usually being held. And on top of it during pregnancy, and then even more so in postpartum, we are so focused on the baby.
Yeah. And for me, being a fitness professional specifically, I was really surprised how disconnected I felt from my body. And I know this is a common frustration that other moms share too, this disconnection. It's hard to be prepared for how it's going to feel to be pregnant 1 minute and not pregnant the next, but for your body to still be in the pregnancy state. And that's exactly how I felt. Like I felt like, we don't just snap back. Snap back culture is
Mhm.
dead. It just doesn't happen.
Exactly. It's not reality. Yeah. So, what did you do then? How did you overcome this place where you're just frustrated and not sure?
When I'm faced with a challenge, the first thing I do is research, like so many moms out there, right? I threw myself
Yeah.
into figuring out the problem. So that's what I did with this challenge too. I thought I knew a lot about exercise in postpartum, but it became clear that there was an entire section of fitness that I had no idea about. And this is why I was so frustrated in postpartum also because I help people get back to exercise after things like spinal surgery, knee surgery, hip surgery. And I was like, why is this so damn hard to find the same thing in postpartum? And why, as a fitness professional myself, did I not know this? Why was I not prepared? This is not one of the mystical sciences of the world, nor does it need to be a mystical teaching. That's the way it felt. And when I started looking for
Right.
help figuring this out, it was like, I came across different postpartum theories and I took all kinds of courses, read all PDFs, took different trainings, did all the things I could possibly find. And back in 2013, there wasn't much. And I think I bought 4 different programs and I tried all of them. And for 3 years, I basically did trial and error training and piecemealing my recovery together. And I'm sure a lot of moms have that same experience, trying to piecemeal things that they find together to make something that works for them.
Yeah. I mean, I remember you with this process and I remember how frustrated you felt. And I really paid attention to your struggle. Like it was significant to me because you already had this baseline of knowledge, like extreme already. You were an anatomy kind of, you knew anything about anatomy and movement. That was just your jam. And so the fact that you were frustrated was really eye opening for me.
Yeah. None of the things that I came across felt like they really fit.
What do you mean by that?
And what I mean by that is, given all of the things I already knew, most of the programs were really superficial and didn't feel complete or didn't go deep enough. Because of my prior experience, I knew instinctively that there were more layers to address in the postpartum body than what was being given. So that's when I actually found our mentor and teacher, Dr. Sarah Ellis Duvall. And she's still our mentor to this day. She's amazing. And from what I learned from Dr. Duvall's courses for fitness pros, I finally started feeling strong and like myself again at 3 years postpartum. And then I got pregnant again. So it's like I go through all of this for 3 years and I'm like, yes, I'm feeling back. And then suddenly I'm like, oh my gosh, now I'm pregnant.
I know. Yeah. But you know what? Yeah. You turned this into the best gift, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was the perfect timing because then I started working through some of the postpartum corrective exercise material, which is what Dr. Duvall teaches to fitness pros while I was pregnant. And it was incredible. I could learn some of the
Yes.
specifics of postpartum recovery, but also then apply them in pregnancy. And I was able to apply so many of those concepts that my second postpartum recovery was so much better. I can't even tell you. I mean, like night and day difference. The same person can have two very different experiences. With my second, I was back to running with 0 prolapse within 4 months of giving birth, which was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. And it was proof that this stuff works, but also that you can do it in pregnancy too.
Mm-hmm. Right. You don't have to wait for all the quote damage to be done and then try to put yourself back together again. We're not Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like you really can get out ahead of it.
Yeah, definitely. You can definitely minimize some things that happen during postpartum if you're conscientious during pregnancy. But if that wasn't the case for you, there's still a chance, in postpartum, you can still recover if you, really put your effort into it in early postpartum or in postpartum in general. So, from the point of having this experience and going through one postpartum that was really challenging, and then being able to apply knowledge to a pregnancy and then have a second really different experience in postpartum, I knew from that point that I needed to put my full attention on the pregnant and postpartum population. And that's what we focus on. We focus on prenatal and postpartum women only. We don't see anybody else. And because I know that if this was hard for me to find out all this information, imagine how hard it was for someone who's not in the fitness industry. If I felt like I couldn't do it with all of my anatomy and physiology knowledge, how is it fair that someone in the general population is going to know what to do too? And it's also not fair that you have to spend years studying this in order to know what to do after having a baby.
Totally. Okay, wait, I want to come back to this story in like what happened next in just a minute, but I want to step back for just a second. When you were a kid, you wanted to do something else as a career.
Yeah. In high school, I wanted to be an architect. I loved spatial design and spatial order. And I think there was something about like the lines, the structure, the shapes, and how they relate to one another. It just like really inspired me.
Yeah. And well, I remember as a kid, when you talk about spatial order, I think you pretty much rearranged your bedroom furniture every week. And so you definitely had something going on there that you needed to fulfill.
Yeah, I definitely remember moving my bed in every single possible way possible in that small bedroom. Yeah, multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah, when you were little, I mean, you were probably like 10. You had some vision.
Yeah.
About order and spatial relationship between things, for sure.
Are you tired of being told that your pregnancy or postpartum aches and pains are normal and should just go away on their own? That your concerns about birth are normal and not to worry? Like you're supposed to wait, take it easy, and do the whole trust your body thing. Yes, our bodies are amazing, but waiting and trusting without any action only makes imbalances, weakness, and insecurities worse. We work privately with moms who want to take an active role in creating strength, healing, confidence, and independence, whether that's in your fitness, in your birth, or in your active life as a mother. Moms who work with us value having a simplified path to follow that's personalized to their needs and gets them to their mind, body, and fitness goals faster. If you need more help feeling your best in pregnancy, birth, or postpartum, reach out. See if we're fit to work together. Contact us at devotedmamas.com/private coaching. You can be strong and confident for the next adventure ahead of you. See if working with us can help. Go to devotedmamas.com/private coaching, all one word. That's devotedmamas.com/private coaching. Now back to the show.
When I think of it, it's kind of like I did go into architecture after all. It's kind of architecture of the human body. The work I'm doing now, instead of molding steel and sheetrock, I'm molding bodies. Kind of architecture, right?
Right. Yeah. So if molding bodies through exercise is your thing, to me, I mean, it makes perfect sense why you would have gone into corrective exercise as a trainer. Now, this is a word like corrective exercise that probably a lot of folks out there aren't even familiar with, the fact that there is this thing called corrective exercise. And you started out as a personal trainer, as a kind of a general personal trainer, but you actually didn't stay as a general personal trainer for long. Like this whole concept of corrective exercise that you then later applied to postpartum and pregnancy, that seed was planted a long time ago. So take us to that place. How did that transpire where you moved out of general training to corrective exercise? What was that about?
Yeah, I didn't stay a general personal trainer for long. And just to make the distinction, a general personal trainer just works on, basic strength and keeping exercises that will improve strength, not really addressing movement patterns and corrective movements that might correct things that might be out of alignment. And so I actually remember you were the one who turned me on to corrective exercise because you sent me an article like way back when, and I was a general trainer. And you were like, check this out. There's a thing called corrective exercise. And I think it's right up your alley. It sounds exactly like what you want to do. And I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even know there was a distinction. I mean, this is back in like 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
And corrective exercise is really focused on looking at movement patterns, how the whole body moves, and then addressing specific patterns that are imbalanced, correcting them, and then applying the strength on top of that. So it involves a lot of anatomy and kinesiology. So that's why I love it.
Yeah. One of the things that stuck out to me that I want to just interject here is it's not just correcting the movement at, say, like the elbow joint or the knee joint. It's actually looking at the whole kinetic chain and looking for knee imbalances, for example, in the hip or in the toe or something, right? Or in the back or in the shoulder even. So really looking at the whole kinetic chain. And so I think that's just one cool nuanced thing. While there definitely is a movement of functional training and a lot of other things where we are looking for balances and creating balance in the body and whole body fitness, corrective exercise is often just a layer deeper, I think. And it's really useful. And it's also the kind of training you don't do corrective exercise necessarily or exclusively at corrective exercise for your whole life. It's
Right.
really targeted.
Yeah, exactly. And what I saw working with my general population clients was really what encouraged me to go into corrective exercise, that specialty, because I was seeing hundreds of bodies at a time. And I kept seeing repeating patterns of pain, patterns of injury. People would come in with back pain or shoulder pain or, elbow pain. And it's like, I felt it wasn't appropriate to just lay strength on top of that. There had to be something underneath that needed to be corrected in order to get them out of that pain pattern. And I'm not a physical therapist, but I think there's a stage between, you can apply corrective exercise in terms of looking at the movement patterns to get someone out of pain before they have to go to physical therapy, right? Physical therapy is definitely necessary when it's necessary, right? But I felt this desire to want to help people like, oh, my back hurts every day. Well, let's apply some corrective exercise techniques and see what we can do and see if we can get you out of that pain. And of course, if it continues, you go to CPT and all of that. But I just knew I could do more than just general personal training. And it just wasn't cutting it for me. I like giving people great workouts, but what I love is when a client heals a pattern that they've been stuck in for decades that they thought would never go away, either due to a former injury or a more recent one. A prime example is like when a client will come to me and they're like, my hip keeps popping every time I do core exercise. Like, oh, that's been around for my entire life. Like it's never going to go away. And then 30 minutes later, I'm like, okay, let's do this exercise again. Let's do some corrective exercise around it. Let's try it again. And they're like, what? My hip isn't popping. How did you do that? So it feels like kind of like a magic, science, which is awesome. I just love that so much. And I find the beauty of corrective exercise is that you can go so much deeper into healing patterns than with general exercise application.
Exactly. I mean, you can go much deeper into the exercise. And when it comes to postpartum and this journey that we're on to bring our bodies back to feeling balanced, deeper into healing. And that brings us back to your story. So because you have this corrective exercise lens, I know firsthand that working with you is a very different experience than other trainers that I've worked with, which they were fantastic. And working with you has always given me interesting insights that I've been able to kind of like little golden nuggets that I take with me, and they stick with me and they impact me. So I think it comes down to, and I want to highlight this in our little getting to know you reel because I want people to know that there is something about not just your knowledge, but how you instruct, guide, how you see, how you share what you're seeing, how you help people get to the root of what's happening. And I think that's another piece is like everything that you've seen, it's like I'm now aware of. It's not like you hold the truth about my body and I have to come to you and, you tell me what's going on. It's that you've actually been able to transfer your knowledge in a way that I can digest as a non-anatomy geek, not nearly as much as you, lovingly. And I'm just curious, like, what do you attribute that to? How do you do what you do? Can we demystify the mystical aspect of your essence, which is just that you come with such knowledge, but also so much clarity and simplicity that people can take it on for themselves and learn from it and learn about their bodies and feel empowered in their bodies. It's just the coolest thing to see. I felt it personally myself, and I know all of the clients that we work with experience this too. What do you attribute this to?
Well, I think most of it is because I'm a perpetual student. I love learning new things and applying it to people that I'm working with and just applying it to bodies and seeing how it fits in bodies. And it's just like to me, it's like a magical experience too, that, I get to apply these techniques and exercises and theories into people's bodies. And I get to help people get back to exercise, like full exercise after surgery, after, postpartum. I think a lot of it is the fact that I do love spatial orientation and the connection. I just see the lines so clearly. To me, it's like when I see people move, it's almost like I'm seeing lines being drawn from one part of their body to the next. And I don't know if it's the spatial orientation or just, that kind of architecture brain, but it's like I see the connections right out of the gate. What I was taught early on, and one of my coaches once told me, he said, do you think it's more important to have knowledge, or do you think it's more important to be able to communicate what you know? And I said, definitely to communicate, because if you have the knowledge and you can't communicate it, then it stops with you. But being able to communicate what I'm seeing into what my clients are able to feel is so awesome. And I think over the years, I've really honed that experience because I really want them to understand what's going on in their own body and to have advocacy over themselves. And just like you said, like, I don't want to make people feel dependent on me. I want to create independence. And so I want to teach people how to feel what I feel, see what I see. And oftentimes they have clients saying, like, how can you see that? Especially like even on Zoom sessions, like, how did you see that? Again, it's the spatial awareness. Like I can see things. It's almost like lines drawn on people's bodies. But I love watching the sparks fly in their eyes when they connect the dots and connect in their bodies in a new way. And they're like, oh, I've never felt it that way before. Like, yes, that's what we're going for.
It's so empowering. And what's cool, like the muscles have memory. So we have this experience once and we've got it. It's ours and we get to work with it, which is the coolest thing about all of it.
Yeah.
Now, the second part of this healing piece, so we're talking about corrective exercise and being able to really heal the physical movement piece. But there's a second part of why you can go so much deeper into healing. It really has to do with your experience with prolapse that you got after having kids. So I feel like you possess this sensitivity to the nuances of postpartum recovery and how a person feels, which you're a very type A person, which makes you meticulous and really good at what you do. And you're also very compassionate and understanding when it comes to really embracing the realities and the struggles that someone might encounter as they go down this path, but also holding space to, let people know that you're here for them, no matter how hard it gets. And you take your time to help moms really embrace this process. Because when you were kids, let's say you were not the patient one of the two of us, but I have like epic patience, you guys. So really that's
she does.
Not saying too much.
Not me. I don't. That's why we work so well together. You have the most patience and I have, I've grown to increase my patience taught by you.
So really, but in this process, I think you really identify with this desire to resolve this situation, the prolapse, the leaking, the core, the diastasis, all these things. Like you are so there for that. And at the same time, you're tenacious in the sense that you really help moms embrace the process. I mean, is it because you had to go through it yourself Like, what is it about your story that it's not about just pushing our body through all these paces? There's a compassionate aspect to that too. What do you attribute that part to?
Well, I'm a Gemini, so there's that, right? Two
Yep.
sides. But also, yeah, I think my own experience was so humbling that I think that experience really brought me to my knees. I realized that I'm not immune to the postpartum challenges and struggles, and that, it really helped me understand what other moms are going through. And I think also my vast experience with so many different types of people over the years, different body types, different athletic abilities, different pain challenges, different personalities, it's really helped me understand the depth of a human being, and that we're all so different and we all bring different things to the table. And so, what I strive to do is come to the table with my knowledge, but also the openness that we're all different and we all come with different experiences, but we're all working towards the same goal.
Yeah. So, if you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice for today, what would you say?
Well, there would be two pieces of advice, one for pregnancy and one for postpartum. So,
okay, one each.
One each. So if you're pregnant, start your postpartum recovery in pregnancy. And we'll be talking about this topic more in this podcast, but I can't stress this enough. So if you want to know how to do that, stick with us. If you're postpartum, be honest about what you know and you don't know. I know it's humbling because I've been there, but the sooner you can accept the challenges you're facing and the massive shifts that happened, the sooner you can take the correct steps for you. And we're going to help you with that in this podcast too.
Awesome. So when we introduce this podcast, we talk about getting to a place where motherhood feels like it fits. So I'm curious, what does that mean to you?
All right, here comes my second confession. I'm still getting motherhood to fit, right? And I think, when does motherhood fit? That's a good question. For me, there are certain aspects of motherhood that feel like they fit. I know that having a career and kids is possible. I've successfully run 2 businesses since being a mother and gotten through the pandemic, and I'm still here. I've also really learned the value and importance of community, really leaning on my friends and other mom friends and other people and asking for help. That's been a really, humbling experience too, is asking for help. And, I've built some really incredible friendships through the trials of motherhood that have helped me feel like motherhood is more of a fit. The other thing is I love to travel. And this is one that's really important to me. I used to travel a lot before having kids, and now it's still important to me. And now I include my kids in it. And I think that is a great way to help motherhood fit into what I was doing before. And it's kind of helps it feel like a fit. So I really learned how to travel and make long trips doable and even enjoyable, both with and without my kids. I think parts of motherhood fit, and I'm still learning. We all are. When we talk about motherhood fitting, what it really means to me is that motherhood doesn't have to look a specific way. It doesn't have to look how it looked for our mothers or grandmothers. We get to create a new definition of what motherhood looks like for us. Really, it's about breaking free of the conditioning that a mother does this or that or the other thing, to defining motherhood on your terms. It's pretty darn exciting, and I am here for it.
Yes. All right, quick round of, we're going to play Would You Rather. All right, so we've got 3 questions. You just have to answer without thinking which one you would rather do.
Okay, let's do it.
Number 1, would you rather have your child blow his or her nose into your shirt or your bare hands?
Oh, geez. I think a shirt, because you could take the shirt off and throw it in the laundry and put on a new one.
All right, number 2, would you rather have your toddler cut their own hair or have him or her cut your hair?
Oh my gosh. I would actually rather them cut their hair because they don't care. I think I would have a freak out if they cut my hair.
All right, number 3, would you rather be able to talk to animals or read people's minds?
Oh, that's a good one. I would rather talk to animals, be able to talk to animals. I'd like to know what they have to say. I don't really think I want to know what everybody's thinking all the time. So yeah, talk to animals.
I'm with you on that one. Awesome. Thanks, Kendra, for sharing your story with us today. As your big sister, it is a joy to see you sharing your talents and passions for the betterment of mothers everywhere. And it's an honor to work alongside you.
Thank you.
To our listeners, if you have a specific question or comment for Kendra, we have a cool way for you to leave a voice note for us by visiting devotedmamas.com/podcast question. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the Being in Motherhood podcast by Devoted Mamas, please share it with other mothers and leave a review.
As always, you can find us on Instagram at Devoted Mamas and check out all links and resources in the show notes. Be courageous and stay devoted to growing into your best self as a mom.